The autumn wind swept through the quiet streets of Cedar Ridge, a small town tucked into the foothills of Colorado. The town was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else. News traveled faster than the school bus, and reputations were built before children even learned to write their names. For 17-year-old Emily Carter, reputation was something she had never been allowed to control. To most people, she was simply the poor girl. Her father had died in a construction accident when she was only 8 years old. Since then, her mother, Sarah Carter, had worked every job imaginable. She cleaned offices before sunrise, stocked grocery shelves during the afternoon, and sometimes worked late-night shifts at a nursing home. Emily watched her mother leave home while it was still dark and return long after sunset. Despite the exhaustion, Sarah never complained. Every evening, she placed a gentle kiss on Emily's forehead and reminded her of the same thing. Education is something no one can ever steal from you. Emily believed every word. While other teenagers spent weekends at shopping malls or football games, Emily spent hers inside the local library. Books became her closest friends. She dreamed of becoming someone who could change lives. Not because she wanted fame, not because she wanted money, but because she never wanted her mother to worry about paying another bill again. Unfortunately, dreams didn't make high school easier. Lincoln High School was filled with students from wealthy families. Designer clothes, luxury SUVs in the parking lot, weekend ski trips, beach vacations every spring break. Emily had none of those things. She wore the same 2 pairs of jeans every week. Her backpack had been stitched together several times by her mother. Her shoes had tiny cracks hidden beneath permanent marker. She tried to ignore the whispers. Sometimes she succeeded. Most days she didn't. The most popular girls in school were led by Madison Brooks. Madison came from one of the richest families in town. Her father owned several real estate companies. Her mother sat on charity boards and appeared in local magazines. Madison never missed an opportunity to remind everyone how different she was from Emily. One Monday morning, Emily entered chemistry class carrying an old laptop that barely worked. As she walked to her desk, Madison smiled at her friends. "Careful," Madison laughed loudly. "That thing belongs in a museum." The classroom erupted in laughter. Emily quietly sat down without saying a word. Inside, though, every laugh felt like another crack in her confidence. Her chemistry teacher, Mr. Thompson, noticed. After class, he stopped Emily in the hallway. "You know," he said softly, "some of the greatest scientists in history started with less than you have." Emily smiled politely. "I hope you're right." "I know I'm right." That conversation stayed with her. Whenever life became difficult, she remembered those words. Months passed. Graduation grew closer. Everyone became excited about senior activities. Prom, senior trip, yearbook awards, class superlatives. Students voted on categories like most likely to become famous, best smile, and most athletic. Emily didn't expect to win anything. She never imagined she would become the target of the cruelest joke the school had ever played. Voting took place on a Friday afternoon. Students filled out ballots while laughing with friends. Madison glanced toward Emily across the classroom. An idea appeared in her mind. She whispered something to the girls sitting around her. One by one, they began smiling, then laughing, then passing notes to students across the room. By the end of the class period, dozens of students had joined the joke. Emily had no idea what was happening. The following week, the results were announced during a senior assembly. Hundreds of students packed into the gymnasium. Teachers stood along the walls. Parents watched from the back. One award after another was announced. Cheers echoed through the room. Then came the final category. The principal looked down at the paper in his hands. His smile faded slightly. He hesitated. Then he read the words aloud. The award for least likely to succeed goes to. A pause filled the gym. Emily Carter. For a heartbeat, complete silence covered the room. Then laughter exploded from every direction. Students pointed. Some clapped sarcastically. Several took out their phones to record Emily's reaction. Madison leaned back in her chair, laughing harder than anyone else. Emily felt every eye in the room staring at her. Her face burned with embarrassment. She forced herself to stand. She accepted the fake certificate with trembling hands. She smiled, not because she was happy, but because she refused to let anyone see her cry. Inside, however, her heart was breaking. She returned to her seat while the laughter continued behind her. No teacher stopped it. No student defended her. She had never felt so alone. That evening, she walked home instead of taking the bus. The sky had turned orange as the sun disappeared behind the mountains. Leaves drifted across the empty sidewalks. When she reached home, her mother immediately noticed something was wrong. "What happened?" Sarah asked gently. Emily tried to answer. Instead, tears finally came. She handed her mother the certificate. Sarah read it once, then again. Her eyes filled with tears, not because she believed the words, but because someone had been cruel enough to print them. She wrapped Emily in a long embrace. "They don't know who you are," Sarah whispered. "But one day, they will." Emily looked through the window toward the darkening sky. At that moment, she made a promise to herself. She would never waste another minute trying to prove her worth to people who had already judged her. From that day forward, she would let her success do the talking. The morning after the senior assembly, Emily woke before sunrise. Her eyes were swollen from crying, but her determination had never been stronger. She quietly got dressed, packed her worn backpack, and walked into the kitchen where her mother was preparing coffee before leaving for work. Sarah looked at her daughter carefully. "You don't have to go today," she said gently. "No one would blame you." Emily shook her head. "If I stay home, they win." Sarah smiled proudly. "That's my girl." Before leaving, Sarah handed Emily a small silver necklace. It wasn't expensive. In fact, it had belonged to Emily's grandmother. The tiny pendant was shaped like a mountain. "When life gets difficult," Sarah said, fastening it around Emily's neck, "remember that mountains aren't climbed in one step. They're climbed one step at a time." Emily touched the pendant and nodded. "I'll never take it off." Walking through the halls of Lincoln High School felt different now. Students whispered as she passed. Some looked guilty. Others laughed quietly. A few avoided eye contact altogether. Then came Madison Brooks. She leaned against a row of lockers with her friends. "Hey, Emily," Madison called with a fake smile. Emily kept walking. "I heard your award is becoming famous online." More laughter echoed through the hallway. One of Madison's friends held up her phone. Someone had uploaded the assembly video. Thousands of people had already watched it. Emily's chest tightened. She wanted to disappear. Instead, she kept walking. She had promised herself something the night before. No more tears in front of people who enjoyed seeing them. Graduation arrived 2 weeks later. Most families celebrated with expensive dinners and vacations. Emily and her mother celebrated with cheeseburgers from a small diner downtown. It wasn't glamorous, but it was perfect. Sarah raised her soda glass. "To new beginnings." Emily smiled. "To making our own future." Neither of them knew how difficult that future would become. 3 months later, Emily moved into a tiny dorm room at the University of Colorado. She had earned a partial scholarship, but it covered only tuition. Everything else, housing, food, books, transportation, was her responsibility. Within days, she found 2 jobs. Every morning she worked in the university library before classes. Every evening she waited tables at a family restaurant until midnight. Some nights she returned to her dorm so exhausted that she fell asleep without changing clothes. Her classmates spent weekends at football games. Emily spent hers studying. While others relaxed during spring break, she worked double shifts. She wasn't jealous. She simply couldn't afford anything else. One freezing January evening, Emily walked home after a 12-hour shift. Snow covered the sidewalks. The temperature had dropped below freezing. She opened her wallet. Inside were exactly $14. That money had to last until payday. She stopped outside a grocery store. A little boy stood beside the entrance with his father. The child looked no older than 7. "Dad," he whispered, "I'm hungry." His father searched his pockets. "I'm sorry, buddy. I don't have enough." Emily looked at the money in her own wallet. $14. That was everything she had. She hesitated only a moment. Then she walked inside, bought sandwiches, milk, fruit, and a small chocolate bar. When she handed the bag to the father, The man's eyes filled with tears. "We can't accept this." Emily smiled. "Someone helped my mom once. Now it's my turn." As she walked away, she realized something. Even when you have almost nothing, you can still choose kindness. Years passed. Emily graduated at the top of her class with a degree in biomedical engineering. Companies offered her comfortable jobs, good salaries, health insurance, bonuses. Her professors encouraged her to accept one. Instead, Emily surprised everyone. "I'm starting my own company." People thought she was crazy. She had almost no savings, no wealthy investors, no famous last name, only an idea. She believed hospitals needed affordable technology that small communities could actually afford. Everyone told her it would fail. Banks rejected her loans. Investors laughed during presentations. One businessman didn't even let her finish speaking. "We're looking for experienced founders," he said, "not little girls with dreams." Emily walked out of the meeting with tears in her eyes. Then she remembered the silver mountain pendant around her neck. One step at a time. She opened her laptop that same night. Instead of giving up, she improved her business plan. Again. A. And D again. And again. For nearly 3 years, failure became her constant companion. Her first office was a tiny garage she rented for almost nothing. Rain leaked through the roof. The heater barely worked. She often wore gloves while typing because it was so cold. Many nights she slept on a folding chair. Friends from college were buying homes, getting married, taking vacations. Emily couldn't even afford a new winter coat. Still, every morning she unlocked the garage. Every morning she whispered the same words to herself. "Keep climbing." One afternoon, when she was beginning to wonder if everyone else had been right, her phone rang. It was a director from a regional hospital network. "I've been reviewing your software," he said. "I think it could help hundreds of patients." Emily held her breath. "We'd like to schedule a demonstration." For the first time in years, a door had finally opened. She didn't know it yet, but that single phone call was about to change her life forever.